So hello everybody, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Abyssal Dagath update which just dropped. Now I'm going to be very brief here, I'm not going to go too in depth about anything, because this clip of me scrolling through the patch notes at a relatively fast pace is almost 2 minutes long. This update is huge. So this video is just going to be a basic overview and I'm going to make more in-depth videos later. Before we get into it though, I just quickly want to mention that I am a Warframe partner, so I got a bunch of stuff for free. Disclosure and all that. Up first we have the Abyssal Zone, so if you head over to any of the syndicate shops, you will see that they now sell abyssal beacons for 5,000 standing a pop. This allows you to do one run of the Abyssal Zone Exterminate node on Ceres. You can either do this in normal mode or in Steel Path, with Steel Path of course having better rewards. And in addition to it being an Exterminate mission, it has sortie modifiers, and every person in the squad has to find one Defixias and bring it over to the extraction. Now the Defixias is an item that you physically have to carry, so it switches you off your primary weapon and it also gives you a debuff for the duration of the mission. Once you finish the Exterminate and everyone brings their Defixias to the extraction, the beacon you use to enter the mission will be consumed, so you're gonna have to buy multiple of these, and you'll be rewarded with a new resource. Now this new resource, Vainthorn, is required to build Dagath and her signature weapon. Now the way you get the blueprints for Dagath and her signature weapon, the Glyph, is via a new dojo room called Dagath's Hollow. This room houses an altar which provides all the blueprints for Dagath and Glyph bits, and as you can see from the video, every single part requires the new Vainthorn. Next on the menu we have Grendel Prime, because this update apparently didn't have enough stuff in it, so they bundled it together with the newest primed access. So we have Grendel Prime coming in with the Masseter and Zylok Prime, as well as the Sumba Prime Siadana and Oni Prime Ephemera. We'll talk about this a little bit more at the end. Winky winky. Moving on, we have some pretty significant gameplay changes, and I've already covered some of these in previous videos. First up, we have shields and shield gating. So previously, shields would provide a 25% damage resistance. This has been buffed to 50%. Fast deflection and vigilante vigor have been given a negative shield recharge delay, so when you equip one of these, your shield recharge will start sooner. And finally, shield gating has been reworked. So previously, if you had full shields, you would get 1.3 seconds of invulnerability, and if you didn't, you would get 0.3 seconds of invulnerability. This is no longer the case. It now scales based on your actual shield value all the way up to 1150 shields, at which point you get 2.5 seconds of invulnerability. They've also changed the decaying dragon key so that if you equip it, your shield gate is locked at 0.3 seconds. However, there is a way to kind of emulate the old way of shield gating through a new mod called Catalyzing Shields. This tanks your maximum shields, but it also sets your full shield gate at 1.3 seconds. And that's kind of it. It basically makes it so that shield gating requires at least a little bit of investment to be good, which makes sense because all other forms of defense require investment as well. Up next, we have some stat and mod changes directed at health, armor, shields, and energy. If you head over to your arsenal, you may notice that mods like Vitality provide a significantly smaller multiplier than they did before. This is because they now multiply leveled stats rather than base stats. So they just kind of changed and tweaked some numbers around for this to line up, and most Warframes remained the same, with a few Warframes actually getting a bit of a buff. Oh yeah, and they didn't just do it for Warframes, they did it for Necramechs and Archwings as well. Then they buffed the rate at which you acquire focus, so whenever you pick up the yellow focus thing in a mission, you will get 5,000 flat focus for your focus school of choice, and they buffed the rate at which your focus lenses convert affinity into focus. Then there is an entire page of Nightwave changes, and these are pretty straightforward because they just reduce the amount of stuff you have to do for individual challenges. So instead of having to catch 6 rare fish, you only have to catch 3. That kind of stuff. Break and armor missions have received some improvements as well, so you will now find weapons lying around that you can pick up with Khal, so you don't have to use the same thing all the time. Khal should now be faster, and he will get loot and enemy radar. And speaking of enemy radar, everyone now gets universal 30 meters of enemy radar, which is lovely. Moving on to the next thing I want to talk about, which is auto melee. You can now just hold the appropriate melee buttons and automatically do combos. And even though I thought I wouldn't like this because I like to mix and match combos, it is really smooth and you can still do that. You can still mix combos and it flows really well. Also, it fixes the attack speed issue where some combos would be impossible to do because you couldn't click fast enough if you got too much attack speed. So, very good. Thumbs up. The next big thing is of course the companion rework. Now the TLDR on this is most companion stats have been buffed, companion mods have been buffed or normalized, and all companions are now effectively immortal. Now, the way this works is whenever one of your companions quote-unquote dies, they will revive after about a minute. And there are different mods, like for example regen and primed regen, that can shorten that quite significantly. They also reworked a lot of the sustain mods because you don't have to worry about your companions dying anymore, and they added a ton of new mods as well. The best thing about this is that you can just choose a companion that you want to run, or a companion that fits your playstyle, rather than a companion that doesn't die and is also at least somewhat useful. Like Sentinels are actually viable in high-end content because their downtime is very minimal if you have primed regen or one of the new mods, and they are significantly beefier than before, especially since you can also give them overguard now. So yeah, another fantastic change. And finally we have the Hydroid rework. So Hydroid is now the king of corrosive and can strip 100% of the enemy's armor with corrosive damage alone. His Tempest Barrage ability now does pure corrosive, with its augment now adding viral as well. You now have at least some control over Tidal Surge, so you can steer it, and instead of it flinging enemies all over the place, it neatly deposits them at the end. He has a new third ability called Plunder, which makes the armor strip from corrosive procs permanent on nearby enemies and grants you extra armor and corrosive damage. And finally, enemies scored by Tentacle Swarm don't flail around anymore, they're just neatly held in place, making them much easier to hit. From the little bit of testing that I did, I must say it feels pretty damn nice. Actually, there is one more thing I want to talk about. They changed the way damage attenuation works for Archons. So they removed the maximum damage caps on them, i.e. the amount of damage you can do in a single hit and the amount of damage you can do per second. And they made it so that modifiers now apply before damage attenuation rather than after. This should make Archons less of a pain to fight because you are pretty restricted in what you could use effectively against them, and it should generally make the fights faster. And that is pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Now, there's of course more, like a lot more, 2 minutes worth of scrolling, kind of more. But the stuff we talked about is what I consider to be the important stuff. I will of course make full videos about everything where I go more in depth, but for now that's pretty much it, so let's top it off with a wee bit of a giveaway. Shall we? And what a surprise, it's Grendel Prime Access, more specifically the Pulverize pack, which is the most expensive €126 one, which has everything, as well as 4,000 platinum. Well, almost 4,000 platinum. Now the way we do giveaways here is as simple as it gets, so all you need to do to enter the giveaway is simply leave a comment with your in-game name and the platform you're playing on. I'll let the giveaway run until, let's just say, Monday, at which point I'll pick the winner and I will send it over to DE. So you're not gonna get this pack from me, you're gonna get it from DE. And as always guys, I thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful. I would like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much guys, I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.